Hey, I'm Helena, and this is Swisspreneur Summaries, where I take your favorite podcast episodes and compress them into snack-sized takeaways. Today, we're starting off with one of our newest episodes and a fast favorite of mine, episode 189 with Julian Teicke, founder and CEO at wefox, Europe's largest digital insurer. Now hang on, before you start thinking, insurance sounds boring. Don't open any new tabs because this episode is the epitome of entrepreneurship. Taking a problem that, quite honestly, most people don't find sexy and turning it into something that can completely revolutionize the world. There's a lot to unpack in this episode, so I've divided it into 3 parts: innovation, culture, and leadership. But first, an intro to Julian. Let's go. Before wefox, Julian joined Groupon in 2009 as an intern. And on the second day of his internship, he got offered a promotion to take his boss's job and $1.5 million worth of revenue and all the responsibilities that come with that. Fast forward a few years, and after helping grow Groupon internationally, Julian co-founded and became COO of DineDeal. In 2015, after swearing he would never go into insurance, wefox was born. What began as hesitation quickly evolved into passion as Julian saw all these inherent issues in insurance and saw the potential role that technology could play to completely shake up this space. Today, Julian believes that wefox is a vehicle to change the world in a dramatic way. wefox recently raised $650 million in their Series C round at a $3 billion valuation. So, how does a company go from, insurance, boring, to a $3 billion valuation? Innovation. In this episode, Julian talks a lot about the struggle that insurance companies have to keep up with tech because their growth is too slow, because they have a capital inefficiency problem. Julian accredits this problem to 2 things. First, insurance companies need money on the balance sheet that they cannot use. And second, a lot of insurance companies have to pay dividends to risk-adverse investors on a yearly basis. In both cases, that capital would be better used for innovation. Julian wants wefox to be the exception to the slow growth insurance rule and aims to be hypergrowth, growing over 100% per year and keeping that going. wefox uses technology and data to improve their margins by reducing admin costs, reducing the loss ratio, and boosting sales. And something that Julian also points out is that presently in insurance companies, the managers of those companies are not founders. Quite often, those founders are long dead. And he believes that those managers just aren't bought in the same way that a founder might be. And this results in a lack of agility that's required to be successful and also creates a culture that doesn't attract a lot of new talent. And that segues us perfectly into the next section, culture. From what I gather in this episode, Julian spends a lot of time getting to know his team and being really in tune with what's going on. Julian mentions that he spends a lot of his time onboarding new talent. He believes it's very important to invest time into getting to know every individual's potential and figuring out a way to maximize that potential. And to get the most out of his team, Julian believes in striking a balance between freedom and setting high expectations for people. So Julian motivates his team to do things themselves, that high freedom aspect, while still holding them accountable to that freedom and the responsibilities that come with that. And probably my favorite part of this entire episode is when Julian talks about supporting his team in developing and implementing new ideas, but more importantly, being there and accepting if and when those ideas fail and motivating them to continue on. And of course, celebrating when they're successful. To me, this is important for 2 reasons. First, it prevents people from developing a fear of trying new things. And 2, it encourages accountability so that people aren't afraid to say, yes, that was my idea, it was a bad idea and it failed, but that's okay. And I think that's so crucial to startup culture. From what I can take away from this episode, this idea of acceptance is just one of the things that makes Julian such a great leader. It sounds to me like he spends a lot of his time listening, learning, and trying to understand his people than talking and being the loudest voice in the room. Which I think a lot of the time people have this false idea of leadership. Whereas based on this episode, my understanding of Julian's role as the CEO is really being an enabler. understanding people's potential and giving them the tools to maximize that. Julian mentions that his role as a CEO has a lot to do with evaluating the signals that come to him as he's working closely with operations. And his role is to process those signals and decide how and if to act on them, and also communicating that to the rest of the team. Julian's goal is to be global #1 by 2030. And he says to do this,
we only get to that position if we know what is expected of us as leaders in 2030. Do that mental exercise. And only if we know what's expected and we're well prepared for that. Only if we are the leaders or the aspiring leaders and we know what we need to be at that point, we get there.
Julian says they have now 9 years to prepare, and they're going to start thinking like those 2030 leaders today, which I thought was really cool. Now, important for you to know is that these leadership skills, these perspectives on acceptance, culture, and innovation, they don't come for free. Julian meets with his life coach once per week and once a month has a full day to just dig deep into all the important components of his life: work, relationships, health, because Julian understands that a three-legged stool cannot stand on two. And that said, the wefox journey certainly hasn't been perfect. Julian says that at one point they were struggling to pay the salaries of the employees at wefox. To find out what kept them going during those hard times, listen to the full episode on streaming platforms or at swisspreneur.com. At one point, Julian mentions that Switzerland doesn't have a lot of existential threats that motivate people to outperform, which is essential to those early days of startups. What do you think about that? Does Switzerland have these existential threats? How are people motivated? How do we stay hungry? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, let us know which episodes we should cover next. Until next time, dream big and never stop learning. Ciao! Cheers. Not a prop, real water in here.